February 28th, 2018, last day of the month, and I took my biggest loss of the month. Let's talk about why. Okay, so ECYT, this stock, I didn't trade in the morning. I saw this thing. When I saw this thing, it was bouncing out VWAP, and I noticed in the news that after the stock had spiked, they into this spike, they did an offering. So, as most of you already know, and if you don't know this, a lot of stocks, as they get their stock up, and as the stock goes up, they do a financing, and they do an offering, diluting the shares, and then that is usually negative for the stock, so it'll cause the stock to come down after the stock spikes. So buying and holding into those spikes when they do an offering usually isn't very advantageous for you. Now, what I did wrong is I got emotional, and I went in too big too soon. So I don't know why on earth I decided to do this, but if you see right here, so the stock right here, it has this little perk right here, and then it fails. For some reason, I thought that the stock was going to roll over right there when that failed. And this stock has such a large float. I think the float on ECYT is, let me check real quick. I think it's like 100 million or 80 million, something like that. I can find out for you real quick. ECYT. So the float on this, actually 38 million. So it's more of a low float, but not super low float. But when you have a float, 20 million or more, they don't spike as fast and as hard as some of those low float ones. So sometimes it's even better to use instead of a 1 minute chart, because there's so many fake outs, it's maybe better to use a 5 minute chart, because you get a clearer depiction on the price action. So there's the 5 minutes, and but I probably should have used the 5 minute chart anyways. So what I did is, first mistake I made was I chased this weakness. I shorted chasing this weakness. I took a small position because I subconsciously or deep down I knew that this probably wasn't a very good time to short. But I have a little bit of FOMO, and I didn't want to miss out on it. Then when the stock starts coming back and it starts going against me, I could have taken a super small loss when it broke this high. Could have taken a super small loss, but no, what do? I decide to wait till it breaks the high a day. So as it's trending up and it breaks the high a day and it pulls back, instead of getting right there, I start convincing myself that it's still going to that it's done. That spike, that one and done, it was a one and done. It was a failed breakout attempt. So I convinced myself, and I didn't want to admit I was wrong, even though the stock is clearly holding trend. It's clearly holding trend. So what do? Dips are holding, and what do? I add into my position. And not only do I add, I start adding with, with a little bit of size. So that wasn't a good idea. Then it goes against me more. And so then I tried to decide to add one more time right up into here at like 590. Then what does it do? It goes again. And at that point, I just couldn't take the pain anymore. I kind of thought that 6, originally whenever I saw this thing down at VWAP, I was looking at it on the daily chart, and I was thinking that this high right here would be a good psychological point for the stock to get rejected at 6. I thought it would have a hard time getting through 6, but when the stock was coming up, I didn't have patience to wait till 6. So I got stubborn. I wasn't patient with my entry, and then as the stock was breaking this high, I covered into this high and ate the loss. So I ended up losing $1,000, which is the biggest loss that I've taken in the last couple of months. So I was pretty pissed about it. So now I waited for the stock. Once it broke 6, and then once it broke 6 and it had a hard pullback, that's when I decided to short. I shorted right. I think 591 is where I shorted, and I did short with pretty significant size, which is kind of, I'm going to say that it's a revenge trade. I probably shouldn't be this short this much with size overnight, but it has the offering, and a lot of times when these things, they do the offering, the next morning you'll wake up to a gap down. Most recent example could be NXTD. If you look at the daily chart, this thing had a huge run. Now into this run, they did an offering. They did an offering. The next morning, it's down here. Okay, the next morning. So with that being said, ECYT, that could be the same thing. And hopefully my aggression pays off. I feel kind of stupid for going as big as I did, but it is what it is. It's actually coming down after hours a little bit. I could reduce some size and take a little bit of profit, but I think I'm going to hold it though, because I think the odds of this thing coming gapping down tomorrow are pretty big. I'll be up early to watch this thing. Now I did have one good trade, Krone. Another thing is that the market's been weak too. So this stock right here, this is one of the only runners today. Was one of the strongest stocks today. ECTY and Krone were the strongest runners today. I actually had a really good trade on this one. This one right here, I saw it right around here when I started watching the markets. It pulled back. Now, if you notice right here, the 830s to the 850s. If you go to a daily chart, that was a clear multi-month breakout or a multi-week breakout. So you got a high here, the 530s. Actually, the high would have been about 540, about 540. So you got those two highs right there, and then your next area of resistance is in the high 9s. So if this thing could break intraday, could break the high a day intraday, and break this high of 840, then I told myself I was going to go long. So what happened is that it broke the high, but it didn't really break it significantly, so I didn't get in. Then it crashed, and then when it crashed, it came back, and I watched it climb. And then when it broke the high here and it just kept going, I was like, wow, this stock has really got some strength. But I can't buy into that strength. So I waited for the stock to pull back. When it pulled back, I bought right here at 856. I bought here at 856. It pulled back. It held this level right here. There was a little bit of tension, but it held this level. I probably should have added to my position right here, and it was adding, and then boom, we got this ramp into the close. A beautiful afternoon climb. I sold into that at $9.13. So this ended up being a really great trade. I think I made like $350. So it minimized my losses on minimized the losses on my ECYT trade. So it wasn't as bad. So the day ended up not being as bad as I thought it was going to be. Anyways, cut your losses when you're wrong. Don't be stubborn. And don't add to losers. So those are my lessons right now. I added to a loser. I was stubborn. And yeah, I added to a loser and I was stubborn.